I've added a couple of new features to MeoMotion. They won't affect compatibility. Everything will still be forward and reverse compatible. So I'm just going to show you those new features, and we'll also get into adding them to the game tutorial that I was working on. We'll load up the Hellcat monster first, and actually before we go into animation, I'll show you this new feature here. In the Move Parts Editor, or the Arranger, you can click Additive, and you can now select things as additive, and it'll put a little A beside them to show that these are now going to be additive blended. And we'll update the runtime stuff too so that it's capable of understanding this additional instruction. Right now it'll just ignore it because it doesn't know what it's talking about. So these are now additive blended. Kind of loses the saturation a bit for this particular effect. In a situation like this, I might actually add a second layer and make one additive and one regular so you can retain the color, or just adjust the colors of them so that it looks the way you want it to, even with the additive. The nice thing about additive blending is if you have items in the background, or you got part of your character and you have something over top of that character, maybe what you want additive blended is like an explosion or a lightsaber or something that lights up, and you're going to see some of that color lighting kind of overlap onto the character, almost as though that character is partly lit by the additive blended object. So it's really good for magic, special effects, glowing eyes, things like that. In this example, you can't really tell so much. But yeah, we'll leave it as additive blended so that we can test it out. So in the animator, let's go to this middle keyframe here, and we'll change animations to the ouch animation. And I want him to kind of light up red a little bit, so it's easier to tell that it's the ouch animation. So this character has sustained some damage. I took out the set parent option here, replaced it with colors, because you really should be setting your bones all in the bones editor, and I don't have keyframed parent setting right now, so you can just use connection map or pick part and parent the object that way. So let's go into the animator, click on colors, which is the new option, and what we could do is just click one item and change the color of it, but I want to kind of change most of these to red. So I'm going to hit, as it says right here, Control A to color all. So we'll hit Control A, and I'm going to make them kind of red. So we'll take down the blue and the green, which is kind of the yellow also, and that'll make everything red. This is an alpha control too. Alright, we'll hit done, and I kind of want these to be blue still, so I'll go back to colors and just click on one at a time, and we'll put them back to the regular color again. So we'll key this keyframe. You notice when I scrub the timeline that he only turns red from here to here, and I'd actually prefer if he started turning red here, from here to here, and then back to normal to here. So if you play this, you can see he only flashes red for a second. So what we can do, we don't want to change the animations for the parts, but we can do key blend for part, and as it says here, you can hold down Control to select multiple items. So we want to do keyframe blending for all these parts, and we want to blend for the color only. So we'll click on this, and now it's set to on, so it's only going to blend the color. Click done, and we hit the first key to start blending from, this key, which is where it turns red, and then where we want it to blend to, which is here. Hit done, and now he slowly lights up to red. So it lights up to red as he gets to the middle, and then goes back to his regular color at this keyframe. Okay, so we'll export this. Export. I'll put it in an export folder. That way the TXTs don't get mixed up. Save it there, and we'll save this file, and we'll open up the other monster. We'll open up Monster. I don't know if there's anything that we want to set an additive effect on here. No, there wouldn't be. We'll go to Animation. It's got Idle, Run, Tack, Ouch. So we'll do the same thing here. I'm just going to copy this first keyframe by holding down Shift and the right drag. Otherwise you're just moving it if you just right drag it. So we'll go to this second last keyframe here, which is basically the last keyframe. And then we'll go back to the middle keyframe. So now we got to copy the first keyframe on the last keyframe. And that's just so that we can key blend to that frame. And we'll say colors, Control A. So we'll do all of them. And make them kind of turn red. Keyframe it. And here there's only this one keyframe here to interrupt the change of color. So if you wanted to, you could just leave it like that, it'd be fine. We'll just do the same as the other one, key blend for a part. Hold down Control to choose all of them. Say color only, done. This one, and this one. There, that looks pretty good. We'll save it. And now we can export, and we'll add it to the other project. So We'll add it to this one here, because this isn't a Chainsaw Cat export. If we go into the hellcat.txt that I selected to export as a combo, you'll see that it actually did make a combo here. It's looking for monstercombo.png. We're going to change this to monsters.png. This here you can ignore. This is just your reference for figuring out which character each animation is. So this would be character 1, which is Hellcat. And then if you go sprite sheet, it'll recognize Mouster as character 2. So it's going to need the mousters.png file, because I renamed this. So we're going to have to rename that file too. Instead of combo, it'll have to be Mousters. Or actually, no, rename this monsters. Monsters.png, because that's what we're using in the game. And we'll rename this combo version monsters.txt. And I'll grab the combination graphics, which should be right here, Hellcat combo, drag it into the export folder, because it always saves it in the same folder that the original one was in. And we'll rename this monsters.png, and we'll copy this into our game, into the content folder, and the monsters.txt we'll put into the binary or the bin folder where the executable is going to be. So I'm in the platformer folder, go into content, and monsters1.png is what I was calling it. So we'll paste in here, and we'll delete the old one. Oh, I got the monsters backwards. Okay, so I just dragged the other one into a backup folder, renamed this one monsters1.png. Now we got to go grab our monster.txt and put it in the appropriate bin, not this one, but in this one in here, into both the debug and release version. So we'll grab this monsters.txt, which has both monsters in it. Go into platformer, go into bin, desktop, put it in debug and release, paste it in here, and I just dragged the old one into the backup here. I'm going to rename this one monsters1 because that's what our game is going to look for. And we're going to have to edit this because we changed the PNG file name for the combo. So this would be monsters1.png, and then save it. And you'd want to copy this also into the release folder. You can do that now or you can do it later. As you can see, because I exported them in a different order this time, it thinks it's got the monsters mixed up. It thinks one is the other one. So they're inside out. But that's easy enough to fix. So all we have to do to fix it is to just do it in the right order. We'll start with the Mouster, and we'll export that one just as a single. Yeah, we can just use the same export folder. Replace it, yep, open the Hellcat, and we'll export as a combo. Want to go to the export folder we put it in, and just click on that monsters.txt, save, matching character exists. Oh, what did I do here? I don't know what had happened, but it actually didn't export the first one. I'm not sure what I did. So this is the other monsters file. It never got changed. I'll just delete this. I'll try again. Okay, we had a little bit of a mix up there. So we got the Mouster open. That's the one we're supposed to do first. We'll export it as regular TXT, just as a single export for now. And I don't want to export it in this folder because I might accidentally overwrite the rectangle file here. We'll just take a quick look at it so you can see what this is. And this is just with the sprite sheet packer. Sets up the coordinates for the source recs, which is what the project needs. So we're going to go into an export folder. Probably should give it a different name just in case we accidentally overwrite, which we don't want to do. We'll call it monsters because we're going to add other monsters to this. I just dragged the old combination graphics into here in this backup folder. So the new combo should fall in here and the export will be in here. So next we'll load the Hellcat and just go File, Export, Add Projects to 1PNG and TXT. Let's make sure we're in the right folder here, the export folder for monsters, and we're going to add it to this one. Now it should have combined them correctly this time. So we'll go into that Mouster export folder, go to the monsters.txt, open it up, and we're going to change the name of the combo file to monsters1 and save it. And we can rename this monsters1 also because we might have different levels of monsters. Now what we're not seeing here is the combo file. That's probably because it was using the last folder we were in. So we'll just grab it from here. We'll cut it from here and we'll paste it in here and rename it monsters1. Then we'll put this in the content folder and we'll put this one in alongside the executable. So copy, we'll paste monsters1 in here, replace the old one, and then we'll copy monsters1.txt to put it with the binary. The binary is in platformer, bin, desktop, eCPU, and we'll put it in both release and debug, and we'll replace this one. Now we'll open up that project, and you'll notice that even though we changed the file format, the runtimes still work, because it'll just ignore instructions it doesn't know about. So we'll have to add those to it. And I'll update on the website the new code for that. As well, I'll show you how to modify it manually here. We'll go into the MeoMotion folder and go into MeoMotion, which contains the file loader, and we'll add a public boolean called additive, and that'll mark that sprite part to use additive blending. Then we'll go to our key class here, and we'll add a red, green, and blue component, which are floats, color blending. In MeoMotion, we'll scroll down to the load.txt, and where it has part name, let's make sure it resets the status for additive to false. Oops. So parts p.additive equals false. We'll just add that right here. And then in this section here, which is for parts, just after part parent, we'll add a case for additive. Let's say parts. So if it even finds that case at all, then we know additive has got to be true, because otherwise it wouldn't add it to the file. So we'll scroll down into the animation section down here, and one additional case here now, because we can do color blending now, is KRGB. Say anim.a.keys red should be the first one, and it'll be a float, so it'll be convert to single. It'll be 1. And if you want, you could have just copied this from this K alpha here. It's basically the same thing. You just paste it here, change alpha. We did red already, so now we're going to do green, because that's the next one. Make sure you set strs to 2, the next string. We'll paste again, and then we'll get blue. And that one will be 3. Then we can go break. Okay, then under MeoMotion folder here, we'll go into MeoPlayer and make it so that it knows how to handle those things. Actually, before we do that, go back to MeoMotion, and in the animation section here, for loading animation. So we added this KRGB here, but if it's an older file, it might not have this. So let's make sure the defaults are going to be correct, and it'll be full RGB value instead of 0. So we'll go like this. Say red is equal to 1. I'll just copy these and do the same thing for green and blue. So that way, in case it's an older format, at least the RGB values will be correct. Okay, so now going into MeoPlayer, we'll go down to where it draws it and make sure it knows to set it up for additive blending when appropriate. In the MeoPlayer draw method, we'll add a boolean saying last was additive, say false. And keep in mind when you're creating your characters or setting them up and you're adding additive blending to parts, you want their layers to be close together, preferably all behind or all in front, or have like 2 sets, one that's all behind the character, one that's all in front of the character, just so that there's less switching in states. It's a little more optimized that way, but if not, it's not going to be a big deal. You're not going to see a major performance hit. Alright, so let's decide which mode we're going to be in. I just copied and pasted this out of some other code. We'll have to change this here, obviously. So the part that we're concerned about is part P, and if that's additive and last was not additive, then we need to change states here. So we'll end that batch. Oh, and this has to be meo.partsP because it's in the MeoMotion class. And let's go back up to here where we have this boolean for last was additive. We'll add this blend state resolve, and we'll call it old blend, so that way we can keep track of the old blend state when we want to switch back. And we'll say old blend is equal to batch blend, and this is kind of getting crazy here, so let's just stretch this out a bit. And we know what the texture is. It'll be in the MeoMotion for the active texture. It should be meo.text. And we know we want to set it to additive. We've captured the old blending state. So then when we want to switch back, because parts p.additive is no longer additive, and last was additive, then we know we're switching back. So we'll switch back to old blend. Last was additive is now false. And this should be meo.parts p. And this is relative to whether a condition was met, so we got to initialize this. We'll say blend state dot alpha. Yeah, alpha blend, probably what we'll be using mostly. Actually, if we multiply alpha, we got this here to determine what that should to be. So considering that, we can just get rid of this completely, and we don't need to record the old state. And we can just do a conditional here. If pre-multiply alpha, we have everything set up for pre-multiplication of alpha, then let's say blend state alpha blend. Else pre-multiplied, or non-pre-multiplied I should say. So this is non-pre-multiplied. That should do it. So now this will switch back and forth between additive blending and the regular blending. Now we need to take care of color. Before we do that though, we're going to have to add a red, green, and blue aspect to a final. So let's go into MeoMotion and go to where it says final. Say public, float red, green, and blue. And then we go back into MeoPlayer where we calculate that stuff in this update here. Go to where our interpolations are and just look where it calculates the final alpha right here using linear interpolation, and we'll just copy that 3 times. We'll do red, green, and blue, and we'll just have to change this alpha and this alpha to red, green, and blue. So red, green, blue. I'll suggest it's possible to combine this all into a single color and just do a color lerp. I don't think this makes much difference. This gives me a few other options if I want to do other types of things, so I'm just going to leave them separate. So scroll down to draw again, and we'll set up the color here. Now keep in mind, this color here is one that's passed in to colorize what we're doing, and doesn't really concern the final colors, which are to be combined. So red, green, and blue components. Just multiplying the results together. So in order to do that, I made this vector4 vcol equal to the vector4 version of the color that's passed in. And then I'm just going to multiply the components together and make it into a byte. So we'll just say final I.red times vcolor.x, first component, oops, final, and then we'll multiply that by 255, and then it'll convert to a byte. We'll do that for red. We'll let the alpha have 100% control. And what this does is, this is at this exact moment, this is what red, the animation, wants, and the value passed in is just going to scale that from 0 to 100% depending on what this is. So green, blue, and alpha, the same sort of idea. Alpha last, and then we'll go Y, Z, W. Okay, and theoretically that should do it. Oh yeah, almost forgot. This has to be green, this has to be blue, this has to be alpha. Otherwise it's not going to look like the colors are changing at all. I just paused it for a moment to sort out a bug. Before I was doing this, color.r, and this is looping, so that's actually a bug because it's going to keep changing that color value. So we don't want the original color that was passed in to ever change. So we use this col right here, and we create a vector color, multiply how much we want to change the color by for each red, green, blue, and alpha value, what percentage we want to change it, which was passed in here, and converted here, and then multiplied here. And to set the R, G, B, and A individually, we have to multiply that final percentage, which is this, by 255. So we'll get a number ranging 0 to 255, make it a byte, and then we can put it directly into the red value, green, blue, or alpha. So then if it's alpha blend mode, which is pre-multiply alpha, we get the color from that color, cast it to a vector4, and convert it to a pre-multiplied color. If it's non-pre-multiplied, we don't have to do anything to it, so we don't need this else statement here. Get rid of that. As far as the switcher goes, if it's supposed to be additive and it wasn't already in an additive state, it ends that batch with the regular blended mode, switches to the additive blended mode. Then we update last was additive, and then we switch back when we're done with the additive stuff. So this only really does one thing. I'm just going to compress it a little bit. Not as much to look at. Alright, so let's test it out. He should turn red when we hit him. It looks like the additive blending's working, as expected. It's kind of hard to tell. Yeah, he turns red. It's kind of hard to tell the difference because, like if it was more like a layered bits of an explosion or something, or magic or something like that, it'd be easier to tell. In this case, whether you use additive or not additive, it's not really going to make enough difference that you can notice. But you notice with the explosions and the fire, the additive blending makes a big difference. think I might have accidentally reloaded an older copy of Mouster without that red version of the ouch effect. So that's actually the original. Only the chainsaw cat won't change. But that's okay, at least we know. And I'll upload the updated versions of the runtime codes as soon as I get a chance.